So here's a cool video. So we're going to be assembling ported 760 basically. So this is 760 stock bore, fresh sleeves, fully ported cylinder, fully ported cases. The cases are also epoxy stuffed, as you can see. This motor is for Mike Finnegan from Roadkill, Faster with Finnegan, Finnegans Garage, so on and so forth. The guy's the man. I'm super excited to be building an engine for him. So this is for him and his son, I believe. They both play with their, well, they've had a square nose Superjet for years, and we're refreshing it. So fully ported 760, billet girdled head, factory B pipe. So it's going to rock. So as I said, ADA head, we're using boys and reeds and stuffers. So you can see the stuffers installed. The manifold is ported. This is going to be running dual 38s, not 44s. So it's going to have really good bottom end, good mid-range, also great top end. So the transfer is epoxy filled and then machined. So this just allows the two carbs to run independently in each cylinder so you can tune them. I find on high performance stuff it works better. So let's start getting this thing together. Let's get started. Da-dum, da-dum. Alright guys, so let's get ready to get this thing together. So we'll start off. Get the cases on. Grab our assembly goo for the seals. So as I've said, you know, the little tits go out on the Yamahas for the seals, so use the assembly goo. Be generous. Tits out on the seal. Then for the rear seals, this is where everybody gets in trouble. The one with the tits to the outside, the one without to the inside, and then we're going to stuff this one. So what we end up doing, I lube the seal like I lubed the other one. And then this is really to stay in between the seals so the seals don't get hot and stay lubricated. Same thing. So I keep the coupler on the cranks. I end up using them kind of as a stand, as you saw. The crank sits very nicely on that coupler. Good way to kind of handle it while you're doing this type of stuff. So the labyrinth. One. Make sure you double check. You really don't want those pins not to be located. If they are, when you push this in, you push the pins through the cases and it can be a real pain to get them back out later. Scoot this over. we will put our case sealant on. Now this is where a lot of people go a little overboard. When you put case sealant, you really want a very small amount. So I put basically a small amount, and then we'll go back and wipe it on. I always get asked, like, what's the best case sealant? They're all good. I personally like Honda Bond. I like the way it works, like as it's drying. The other thing is, compared to the other ones, it's cheaper, and I go through a lot of it. So considering I've never seen a difference in it, and I like the way this cures more than all the other stuff, I've just stuck with Honda Bond for years at this point. But, you know, 1211, Yamaha Bond, Honda Bond, Cowie Bond, even like some of the Permatex gray case sealant stuff, all of them work great. The nice thing with this is after you put it on, you can put a really thin coat. As you can see, I kind of put it on and almost wipe it back off. It stays nice and tacky and doesn't make a huge mess. So now, because this is a performance motor, we're just going to put a very little bit of bearing retaining compound on each bearing, at the top of the bearing, well, the bottom of the bearing, the lower half of the case. And I found by doing this, for some reason, some engines like develop almost like a vibration, and they cause fretting in the lower end bearings, in the cases where they, you know, really beat up the cases. I have found when I started doing bearing retaining compound on those engines, that's completely gone away. It is a lot more common with the Kawasaki 750 and 800 stuff over the Yamaha stuff, but I've also seen it with these Yamaha 701s. So as I've said in my other videos, this is set just to run it down. So we're not actually torquing anything. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, nothing. So we're going to step these. We're going to go 12 and then 18. For it to be down to 12. All right. Back over. There we go. Now let's put the bed plates on. go. Perfect. Now, I just want to show you this real quick. Let me pull this down. So when you put the right amount of case sealant, see how little squeezed out? It's not a huge mess. Even here, see how little? If you have case sealant squeezing out everywhere when you're assembling these, you have to remember that's dropping into the crank, into the bearing, stuff like that. It's a machine fit, so you really just need as thin and light of a coat as you can, and you'll be perfect. So let me flip this over, and then we'll start with the top end. Alrighty, so now we're just going to fill everything up with oil. Go. All right. Throw the top end bearings in and the pistons. Top end bearings. And then I've said this before in other videos, if you haven't seen before, I always set the two clips opposite so that way I can put the pin coming from the outside on both and not have a difficult time installing the clips when we're all done. So always this small ear goes to the back. The pin locators for the rings go on the intake side on these Yamahas, and there's the arrow that faces towards the exhaust. Perfect. And when you install them, these are floating pins, so the pin needs to rotate. So now, set this down, set the other one up. Lubricate that. Lubricate the pin. Send it home. Oop. Now, just adding a little oil for the rings. Go. do that. Perfect. Put the dowel pins in the cases. Now let's get ready to put the girdle kit on. Alright, so let's get ready to install the girdle kit now. So now when you see these studs, there is a long thread, a short thread. The short thread goes up, the long thread goes in the cases. So the way I install these is where I use this stud installer. So it's a stud puller, so I use the impact and I tighten it on the stud. And then I use the ratchet. And then I use the ratchet to send it home. When it hits bottom, it starts to loosen. Now, the reason I don't use an impact to put them in is the way that these are designed is they're really designed to take them out, not put them in. So the impact normally will loosen these. So I found if you use a ratchet, that doesn't happen. And you can install these quickly. I don't use Loctite or anything like that on these. I just send them all the way to the bottom. And I really don't have them come out. Didn't loosen, but you can see my method for doing this, and this is what I found to be the most efficient way to all these. There we go. So that is all of them set. Now the cylinder. We milled the head for Finnegan, Finnegan Speed and Marine, EMP. This engine, we're running 37cc domes. So it's going to be pump gas, which is what he had asked for. So if you guys are new to the channel, this is assembly goo. It's used for O-rings, mainly used for transmissions and stuff like that. But I use it basically on everything that requires, you know, lubrication for a seal, something for an O-ring to stick. There's two different colors. There's green, which is the thicker one. There's also blue, which I use more commonly, but it's 92 degrees at the moment, and the blue stuff ends up getting extremely thin in the heat. So when it gets hot like this, I end up using the green more. So one thing, which I have another 701 assembly video that I go through, you know, the way to set the O-rings on these ADA heads. I always see people, you know, on forum groups and stuff like that saying that the O-ring's too long and, you know, that they cut it or something like that. You don't want to do that. The O-rings, as long as you're getting the O-ring kit from ADA or a supplier that, you know, resells ADA stuff, the O-rings are the right size. It's when you put it in, you stretched it. So you want the cord thickness. So if you stretch an O-ring, you know, longer, then what ends up happening is the actual O-ring ends up being thinner and doesn't seal as well. So don't cut the O-ring shorter, just reset the way you did the O-ring and you should be fine. So the trick is really setting it in and almost like pushing it backwards as you do it. See how it's a little bit long? Now watch, I will work my way back. We just keep working our way back until it ends up fitting in. Go. Come on. Perfect. There we go. So, as you can see, it was sticking up a little more than it should have. Not a big deal. All right, so let's put the head on now. Now that's not torque, that's still on that soft setting. And all I'm doing there is just making sure the O-rings don't kick out on me. Just quickly make sure all these are threaded right. Good. One of the nice things with the Yamaha 701 is the one bolt is in a slightly different location, so you can only put the head one way. So if you're ever trying to put a head on and you notice one bolt won't go in, it could be that you have the head on backwards. Now we're just going to run all these in the loose setting. Go. put girdle stuff on. Now we're going to start off at 19, and then we'll go to 28. We're going to go right to 19 on these. You can step them if you want, but considering it's already torqued down, there's already a pre-torque set up on the entire head with the girdle. There we go. All right, here we go. So let's set up the intake manifold now. So one thing I did with this engine is I blocked off the transfer port, which is right here. So with a stock intake manifold, there's this port in between. So when you assemble a stock intake, it goes gasket, aluminum spacer, and then gasket, so that you don't have an air leak in between, or it would leak here. Now that that's blocked, we no longer need that aluminum spacer. We can just do a single gasket and then each reed block. So what we will do, a drop of blue Loctite. So on all reed stuff, you want to have blue Loctite. You want to have blue Loctite on all the little screws for the reeds. And on here, if one of these screws comes out, it is catastrophic. But also they're small screws, so you don't want to use red, because if you do, you'll never get it back out. That one started. Grab my JIS screwdriver. Also, as I had showed, these have reed stuffers. These are R&D reed stuffers. They match the stock intake manifold. Go. First, we'll just snug them all down, and we'll get them as tight as we can. So this intake manifold is ported and epoxy filled, as are the cases. So the cases are stuffed to help with bottom end. This motor should be a real ripper for him. And the main thing is it's built to be extremely reliable. So that's all right. So intake on. Go. Nice and tight. Now onto the exhaust. So as I had said, this is a 760, but we're going to be putting a 61X B pipe on it. So there's two options you can do. Some people will drill these holes out. You can do that, but the wiser thing to do, this is a 10 mil 125, which is the exact size for an 8mm helicoil. So what we'll end up doing is we'll just grab 8 helicoils. And the cool thing with this is you don't have to drill them or anything, you just install them. So we'll thread them in. Thread them so just the thread gets in, so part of the thread isn't hanging out. As you can see, putting the heel coils in is much quicker than drilling out all the other bolt holes. And on the B-pipe, the center two are really tough to get a wrench into. I modify bolts for it. So by doing it this way, you don't have an extra big bolt either that you're trying to get around. And then you just take this and break the little tine off. Go. Perfect. Give me a second, let me blow all this out and we will start installing the exhaust manifold. So now what I do is I take the stock exhaust bolts and I turn them down on the lathe. You can see the head smaller. Now by doing that, when we put the exhaust gasket on, it will give us more room for everything to clear. Go. So now I have a modified 12 mil. You can see I ground, which makes it easier to get in to these tight areas. So if you're going to work on a ski with a B pipe, I would highly recommend making one of these wrenches, because it will be the difference between loving life and hating life. Go. Perfect. Alrighty, so there it is. Next you will see us putting this into Finnegan's boat. So like always guys, thanks for liking. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Back out of the ski, all broken in. Ready for that place right there. She looks pretty.